you put your head above the parapet in Ireland and you speak against the general uni-party narrative that is out there, you will find yourself, as I'm sure we all personally know, find yourself facing the wrath of the great and the good in Ireland, those who believe they're the gatekeepers, the bien passants of Ireland, who believe they know what's good for us, what's good for the Irish people, and they're going to tell us the way it's going to be. Well, we are a party who believes in personal freedom, national sovereignty, national prosperity. These people have led our country into the depths, on a warm day, cultural depths of winter. As I spoke earlier about walking through the streets of our national capital, it has become a dump, almost unrecognisable to most of us. We would almost ask, what city are we in? What country are we in? Is this Dublin? Is this Ireland? The shocking thing is that this just doesn't pertain to Dublin. It pertains to every nook and cranny and so many villages and towns around Ireland. My grandfather grew up until he was 21 in Ballybofey in Donegal. And there's a very good friend of mine lives there just over the River Finn in Stranraer. And he says you go out in Stranraer, Ballybofey now, visually, Irish people are certainly a minority. And just there last night, I was looking, and the party had protest out in Ard about the possibility of a plantation centre in McCabe's garage in Ard. They said, no, that's never going to happen. Well, last night there was busloads of, or vanloads of guards turned up and busloads of migrants turned up in Ard. I went out there, I think it was in January of this year, went out to Big Tree Bar. It was kind of like a rundown hotel-sized bar in Clogherhead. And I met the plasterer who I knew. He put me on speaking to the builder who was responsible for the building. And I was promised that from the builder that it was for 5 apartments. There was no communal facilities. It was going on the open market and anybody can buy it. Of course, there we heard 2 weeks ago that the bunk beds have gone in. So all over, I know someone here who's involved with the council, all over the country, the central government has lied through their teeth to local government, to local people, to local communities. We have been lied to, hand over fist. These people in charge of our country at the minute really, really despise our country. They hate our people. I gave the example earlier there of PPS numbers, because the problem isn't, as the media always try to shoehorn the issue of immigration into about refugees or asylum seekers. No, the main problem that we have with mass immigration coming into Ireland is that it's completely legal. It's completely legal. Last year, 2022, I think it was 304,000 people were given new PPS numbers. 69,000 went to Irish people, and the 234,000 went to non-Irish nationals. That's almost 250,000 people in 1 year. Now, put that for 4 or 5 years, and let's say half of those people remain. The demographic shift in our country is beyond belief. Our policies that we put forward as a party, they are completely rational, they're necessary, and when you compare them with the establishment, the loony left, or all the parties in Ireland now, there's not a socially conservative party in Ireland, economically liberal party in Ireland. There's not another nationalist, sovereignist party in Ireland who believes that Irish people are good enough to make our own laws and decide our destiny as a country and as a people. Over 100 years ago, there was enough men and women who could see the necessity of Irish people making our own laws, controlling our own borders, controlling our own land and working for our own benefit. We've had decades now of the demoralisation of the Irish people. The Irish politicians now take our messenger boys for Brussels. They don't stand up in our interests. So let me go through a number of issues which we want to highlight and campaign on during the European elections. The first one is that we have the freedom to speak. Freedom of speech. The government, of course, where does this legislation come from? As Dahi O'Fallon did very well in a video. Look, the second article of the Irish legislation makes clear that it's from an EU framework. They are messenger boys for the EU. That attack on free speech comes from Brussels. Last Friday, the Digital Services Act came into power across the whole of the European Union. It's a regulation, which means it comes into Irish law directly and immediately. There's no Irish TD can vote on it to make it this way or that way. It comes in with immediate effect directly into Irish law, as they say technically. And what does that do? They have truth flaggers. So you have the EU telling the Irish state that it must appoint truth flaggers. I believe I've been told, I haven't checked, but I've been told that it's thejournal.ie. So the loony left have been given a position that they are going to give you ticks in a box, give you approval, non-approval. Instead, what we really need in Ireland is free speech, that people can hear all the arguments, people can hear all the evidence, and that it's the public who make up their mind in regards to the parties, the policies, the facts, that it isn't the so-called self-appointed great and the good, the right believers, the bien-pensants, who will decide what is truth. Another very important fact, and it's like talking about, Shane was talking about elephants in the room, can we eat the elephant? Well, at the minute, economically and socially, we're being eaten by the elephant in the room, which is mass immigration, uncontrolled immigration of so many invented, especially men, into our country. It has huge consequences for us. I gave the example earlier of last year, there was two groups, 69,000 Ukrainian migrants, 69,000 Irish-born people, and the only difference is they all had an automatic right to a medical card and we did not. So it shows there that it's Paddy last rather than Ireland first. That is disgraceful, and as Frank pointed out there, it's not just to do with medical cards, it also has to do with housing, has to do with welfare, so many aspects that once again, like Irish people, are being used as the cash cow to support and pay for our replacement. That's what we're doing. We've been accused, the Irish Freedom Party believe in the great replacement theory. I don't see the theoretical part of it. Because 17% of people born in Ireland live outside Ireland, according to the OECD, and 20% of people living in Ireland were born outside Ireland. So there's nothing theoretical in it. And just to clarify in detail that the great replacement theory has to do with white people being replaced. I don't care about what colour people are. The important point is that it's Irish people. Sir, English people, weren't they the same colour as ourselves? Well, I don't see the benefit of being replaced by British people any more than people from, Afghanistan and Somalia. So it's nothing to do with race, it's to do with nationality, and this is our people and our country, and we should have, the government should be run by ourselves for our benefit and nobody else. Uncontrolled immigration of unvetted males also has large consequences for our social life, because we have seen a very sharp increase in the number, and I would also say the severity of sexual assaults that have taken, especially in the last number of years. We're all very cognizant of the sharp increase in murders and sexual assaults. Many are absolutely shocking. We need back control of our immigration policy. The problem is, as members of the European Union, there's open borders to 450 million people, and we have no way of preventing any of these people coming in and residing in Ireland. So that is a matter of honesty, of speaking honestly with people, that we cannot control our borders as we are members of the European Union. That also directly impacts on our fishing, for example. We cannot. Fishermen are always complaining, we should talk to Charlie McConalogue, and Charlie McConalogue will go to Brussels, and as 1% of the Council of Ministers, as if he will have any impact. And you're thinking, if you're going to ask a minister from Spain or France or Portugal, which has a huge fishing fleet, that they are voluntarily, just because they like us, they're going to hand over a huge amount of fishing quota back to Irish fishermen. Of course that'll never happen, because it's against their interest, and they will never voluntarily act against their own interest. So as members of the EU and 1% of the Council of Ministers, we will have no hope and no chance of ever getting our fishing waters back. On the matters of food, many people in the country feeling the consequences of the cost of living crisis. One aspect of that is the cost of food. We all know, it's very obvious, there's no farmers, there's no food. The EU, who we were told for decades, the we'll smash the fishermen in the ground, but hey, the EU is going to help us with the farming. Well, no, that was then, this is now. What is the EU leading? One, the imposition of the carbon tax, which I believe is unfair and unjust. And two, it's also completely unnecessary because CO2 is necessary for photosynthesis. It is as that CEO of Ocean Integrity made clear earlier, our problem is pollution with plastics, with sulfur dioxide, with nitric oxide, things like this. It's not CO2. CO2 is not a poison. CO2 is plant food. It's necessary for photosynthesis. It has greened the planet, as NASA has shown, over the last 40 years. So we will oppose climate alarmism, this apocalyptic nonsense that the world is going to end in 12 years. It is the biggest make-believe. It must be the biggest lie since COVID. So, on behalf of farmers and of rural Ireland and of consumers in urban areas who need safe and cheaper, sustainable food, that we will oppose all this climate alarmism in toto, that CO2 is not our enemy, CO2 is necessary for photosynthesis. And anybody who wants to argue with me against that can sell their shirt, you know. So that is that. Yeah, the idea. So now, we will oppose a carbon tax, and the incredible that they were talking about, like the green, this is supposed to be the green agenda. The Green Party are dangerous people. I used to personally think that Sinn Féin were the most dangerous party in Ireland, but I was actually wrong. It's not often that I'm wrong, Michael. But I had it revised, and it's actually the Green Party. They're radical. Like, this is the party who, in Germany, were advocating legalization of paedophilia up until the late 80s. And of course, Roderick O'Gorman, guess what he's doing with his the agenda of the sexualization and pushing this trans cult in Ireland, but that's another matter. But the idea that the Irish government was contemplating and discussing the culling of 200,000 cattle in Ireland at the same time as they're talking about importing cattle from Latin America. It's actually madness. We're shutting down refurbished peat plants in the Midlands, and at the same time as we're importing boatloads of lignite from Lithuania. Right. Like, even by their own insanity, it doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. So we will oppose climate alarmism. We will restate our desire, our call to take back our fishing waters, and that we have control of our fishing waters. And if we want to license other non-Irish national boats to fish in our waters, they will have to pay us, and that will have to go into our national budget for the good of all Irish people. And certainly not for fat fishermen in Porto or Madrid or wherever it is. I don't think Madrid's on the coast. Barcelona. And another important aspect of sovereignty, which has to do with Irish people's lives, is Irish military neutrality. Why is it that Irish soldiers are over defending French uranium interests over in Mali? What is that? Why are we there? We shouldn't be there. Like, the Irishmen are being shot at to defend French interests for uranium. Why are Irishmen? Why would they be put under threat of death in Mali? Ukraine. Why are Irishmen going over to get involved in some potential World War III over between Ukraine and Russia? Does Ireland have any interest over there? Not that I'm aware of. Actually, I think the last time I heard about Ukraine, it was Irish monks going over there in the 9th century. Went to Belarus and Western Ukraine. That was the last really time we had great interest or contact with Ukraine, in the 9th century. PESCO, we're members of an antechamber to NATO. Partnership for Peace, another antechamber to NATO. Why are we members of EU battle groups? When did the Irish people sign up to that? When did we consent to get involved in other people's military alliances? I believe the Irish government, as the Irish Freedom Party in government, would properly fund an Irish Defence Force, so we at least, the very least, have the military power to at least make a symbolic defence of our country, right? That it is shameful that Irish soldiers are hugely underpaid, that the army is massively understaffed. There's only 2 boats that we have that can work, that we have a crew can actually patrol Irish waters. That is shameful, and we as a country will have to pay the ferryman and pay proper money to fund our defence forces and fund our navy. And the idea, I think it's embarrassing that 100 years after our partial independence of part of the country, like there's a deal, a secret deal with Britain, that it's British Air Force which protects our skies. Now, surely a self-respecting country after 100 years, surely we could spend enough money. Hey, aren't we happy enough to spend billions and billions on Ukrainians and Somalians and Afghanistanis? Surely we could spend a few million and get a few airplanes that we could protect our own skies rather than relying on someone else. In the EU, why are we standing in the European elections? Because we want to use the platform of, well, one, the election campaign, and two, being a member of the European Parliament as a platform, and let's be honest about it, with propaganda, right? To tell people what is going on in the EU. Does it protect our interest? Is it harmful to our interest? And use it to vote for the interests of the Irish people, and every vote that the Irish people are put for, that it's Ireland first, not Paddy last, which is what we get from the government all the time. And if we're over in Brussels, that we want it as MEPs, that we will be an Irish watchdog rather than an EU lapdog. And the good news, which Michael made reference to, is that the number of nationalist parties, patriotic parties, or Eurosceptic parties, whichever way you want to call them, they will be coming back in much bigger numbers in the next term than they have up until this point. Like, I work for Christian Therese, a Romanian MEP. He's one nationalist Romanian MEP at the minute, but he's coming back. There's going to be an amalgamation of a number of small parties centred around, or he's coming back with 8 or 10 MEPs. So instead of one MEP, you're coming back with 10. And all the nationalist Eurosceptic parties across Europe are coming back in much greater numbers. So the future, as I think it was last August, I said the future is nationalist because people are waking up to the good sense of having a national democracy, controlling our own laws for our own good. It's not rocket science. We're not looking for some new fandangle. All we want is that Ireland remain or become again a constitutional republic to protect our inalienable rights and also our right as a people to decide our own destiny in this world. That's all. We're just looking to be a normal state. Outside the EU, they all think like that. At the minute, there's a complete reversal of that mentality where all these Mickey Mouse morons over in the Dáil there and traipsing off to Brussels, they're going to please their masters. Well, in the constitutional republic, the people are the masters. We are their masters. And we will make it clear to these losers among the establishment parties that we want a free people in a free country. We want a smaller state. We want a state of lower tax to incentivize entrepreneurship, to reward work, to help people, yes, when they're sick and they're old, but that welfare isn't and never should be a lifestyle choice. Both free speech and free property are the foundations of a free society. And that's why this article, Amendment 39, that they're proposing for the Constitution, that it's so radical. It's not that just right to housing, it's not even for citizens, it's for anybody, residents. So anybody who can get a Ryanair flight from Malaga or wherever, Timbuktu, who lands in Ireland and can stay here for a few weeks, is resident, that they have a right to housing. Why should anybody? Now this may seem radical, but why should anybody have a right to housing? You're born into the world naked, right? You not have a house. Why should it be, and it's to do with the whole thing of welfare dependence. We want a free people in a free country, people who are independent of the EU, but also of the state, also of the Irish state. So to get away from this idea of dependence, and that people should work, accumulate capital, and they have a house. That this communist, socialist idea that people have a right to a house, I find it actually repugnant. Why should somebody who's never worked a day in their life, has no intention of ever working, is a work-shy waster, why would they have a right to a house? Why? And all the idiots, as they're lying in bed laughing at the idiots going to work every day. That's just not on. Justice is given to every man his due. Right? The idea of equality is unjust, because the idea that people would have an equal outcome for completely different input is completely unjust. So it should be justice according that is due to them. Okay, so that's the economic ideas. It was very good there. I think it was very useful. That actually it was very interesting also, that speech from the AFD MEP Joachim Kuhs, because it talks about how it love God, love family, love of life. This culture of life, so different from the culture of death, and that's why we must encourage young couples to get married, to have children, because no country has a future. No country has a future without children. So we are looking to help Irish couples to have children, and he laid out there the importance. They talked about the first 3 years of life, the importance, the psychological formation, the brain. I read this thing years ago about Romania and Ceausescu, and about the first year of children, that their brain structures of children brought up in orphanages in Romania was severely damaged because they didn't get that parental love and attention that a normal child would get. So it is very important, the role of parents, and we as a pro-natalist, as a nationalist party, are also pro-natalist, pro-family and pro-life, because no country has a future without children. And we will oppose a culture of death, and we will stand up implacably and bravely, and also in a very necessary way, for a culture of life. Thank you very much, everybody, and get involved in your party. Cash Cummins and candidates, that's what we want. So get involved. Thank you for coming, and I'll let Michael conclude. Thank you very much.